All right, it's that time of year. We're back. We're loving Charleston real estate right here with agent Lathaniel L. Ford. Lathaniel here to talk about everything real estate that we've got going on. And of course, Lathaniel, I can only imagine, this time we've had some folks on here recently that were builders. They're talking about how big the real estate market is booming right now in the low country. So I can imagine, especially too in spring and summertime, that's probably a big time for folks to make that move. The kids are off.
That's correct.
And stuff. So let's talk about some of the first steps. And again, a lot of folks are probably, old hat at buying a house. But we've also seen in the market recently a lot of renters.
Exactly.
There's lots and lots of renters. So let's just say you're renting, and now we're ready to make that step and say, I'm tired of throwing that money away. What's the first steps in finding the right home?
The first step in finding a right home would be to contact me.
That's exactly right. Yes, we're going to call you first.
The reason why is because what I've noticed, and being in real estate over 10 years, we have a lot of people that starts the process backwards. They start looking for a house, and then they try to go get finance for the house. So what happens is we build unrealistic expectations. In the sense that they really don't know what they're qualified for. So by contacting me, the first thing I do, if you're renting, the very first thing I do, I put you in contact with a loan officer. The loan officer will in return do a application. Basically, they get the last 2 years of tax returns, the last 2 months of bank statements, last 2 paycheck stubs, and then they do a credit check, of course, and then they basically take a look at all of that information, and then they determine how much money they're going to lend you. And then that will, in return, kind of guide your expectations as far as what type of house you should be looking for and what price range you should stay in.
That's right, because a lot of people may be out there trying to buy that champagne house on a soda budget, I guess you could say.
Yes,
we see that happening.
Yes, sir.
I think that goes back to the next lead in here is a lot of folks may still have a fear of, I don't have enough money in the bank to go buy a house. And I know that part of this was the problem that we had back in the bubble collapse.
Exactly.
When the houses were overinflated, they were lending 100, 110%. What about down payment? What do you recommend now for folks if they're looking at a down payment?
Well, one of the, there are different loan programs that require different amounts. FHA loan generally require 3.5%. We have a rural loan called USDA through the government. Is actually 100% financing. Not only that, there are several banks out there that still offer 100% financing. And even if you have to put down money for a home, there are different programs such as Family Services, South Carolina State Housing Program. They offer down payment assistance. So it kind of depends on where you fall as far as the approval process is concerned. So don't let that frighten you as far as purchasing a home. Many people think, well, I need 10%, I need 20%, and that's not accurate.
It's really not the case.
And no, you can get 100%, and then maybe you can get, if you have to put down, it can be as little as 3%. So it just kind of, everything is kind of different, is on the case-by-case basis.
And I can imagine that too goes for folks, and this I guess could apply for folks that may have a home now that are looking to sell or that are in that process of buying. Obviously, one of the biggest things is closing costs. I know the last time that when we went through a recent sale a couple years ago, at this point you're looking, oh my gosh, am I going to have to pay all these closing costs? How do we work this out? Are closing costs something that should be paid by the buyer or by the seller?
Well, if you have a good agent, we can more than likely get some of those costs negotiated within the contract. Closing costs generally will run about 2 to 3% of the price of the home. And then you have what we call prepays, such as your home inspection, the appraisal fee, and things of that sort. But closing costs generally will run 2 to 3%. But like I stated, we can get those negotiated within the contract. If a seller won't pay all, most of the time, if they're willing to, if they really want to sell, they'll pay some of it.
Depends how motivated they are.
Exactly.
And we were just talking about this before we came on air. I think this is a question that a lot of folks have, and I find it interesting because we're seeing home values begin to kind of tick back up here, and in some places in Charleston, it's a significant increase. You know, how are you thinking things are looking out there in the market as far as we don't want to get back to where we were before,
exactly,
but we're seeing a little bit of an increase right now.
Exactly, and I believe the way to make sure, as far as a real estate professional, when I sit down with a seller, because like you stated, they look at the houses and they see the amounts are really high. And one thing we have to be mindful of is that we're doing what we call a CMA, a comparable market analysis, where we're looking in the area to see what the other houses are selling for, and then we price that particular house accordingly, the house that you're trying to sell. So, you know, I think we as a community, as far as real estate professionals, we have to keep an eye on that, because if we don't, it's very likely that we will end back up where, right, the houses or the increase of the price of the home, it should go up, but it should go up gradually. Yeah, it shouldn't jump $50,000 in 6 months.
That's exactly
right.
Yeah,
then something is wrong.
And the other thing too is that I think a lot of this goes back to is that people need to realize if they are renting, if they're first-time home buyers, if they're just getting into this, if you're renting, and we know what some of the rents run around this market.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive.
You can get a nice house for what you're going to pay to rent.
If you're renting and you're paying $800, $900, $1,000, rents can go up to $1,200. You can pay a mortgage.
You can get a mortgage.
Most definitely.
And have your own place. The most important thing is this man right here can answer any of your questions about buying or selling. There he is. Give him a call.
Yes, sir.
Lathaniel Ford's at 843-568-0635, or you can find him on Facebook at Loving Charleston Real Estate. Always great to have you here. I learned so much every time you come in here. And we're going to head it over to Aaron right now.
School is out and parents are looking for activities.